The EU's AI Act is this huge, game-changing piece of legislation. It's massive. But what if I told you that the key to understanding how the whole thing works, how any high-risk AI gets the green light to operate, is hidden inside just one single article? Well, today, we're going to pull that one article apart and see how it unlocks the logic of the entire law.
So let's put ourselves in the shoes of an AI developer. You've built this incredible, powerful, high-risk AI system. Now what? How do you actually prove it's safe and compliant enough for the entire European market? The answer to that multi-billion-dollar question is found in Article 44. If you understand this one article, you pretty much understand the EU's entire philosophy on AI safety. So let's dive in.
And before we jump into the deep end, it's really important to mention that our breakdown today is based on the incredibly detailed commentary on the AI Act that was overseen by Professor Vihar Kiskinov. This gives us a really solid expert foundation for everything we're about to cover. Okay, so here's our game plan. First, we'll cover the basics. What exactly is Article 44? Then we'll trace its wild journey from a simple draft to the final law, and we'll look at the key political battlegrounds where this thing was hammered into shape. After that, we'll break down the final version, piece by piece, and finally, we'll zoom out and talk about why this one article has such a massive impact on everyone. All right, first up, Section 1. Let's get right to the heart of it. What is the whole point of this certificate system? What problem is Article 44 really trying to solve? So at its core, Article 44 is all about one thing: certificates. You can think of it as an official, legally binding stamp of approval. It's the piece of paper, well, the digital equivalent, that proves a high-risk AI system, something used in surgery or for managing a power grid, has been independently checked and, yep, it meets all of the EU's really strict rules on safety and fundamental rights. And the goal here is just crystal clear. It's all about building trust. Before some super powerful AI gets anywhere near the public, this certificate is meant to be a guarantee. It's a signal to you, to me, to businesses, and to governments that this thing has been properly vetted. It's all about making sure AI is safe before it's out in the wild, not after. Okay, let's move on to our second section. An article this important didn't just appear out of thin air. No way. It was forged in the fire of some serious legislative debate, and its journey tells us a ton about what the EU really cares about when it comes to AI. And you can see that journey right here. It was a 3-year marathon, not a sprint. It kicked off back in 2021 with the first draft from the European Commission. But then both the Parliament and the Council jumped in with their own changes, which, as you can imagine, led to some intense back and forth before they finally landed on a compromise in 2024. This table right here, it perfectly captures the tug-of-war that was going on. Just look at the differences. The first proposal in 2021 was pretty flexible, but then you see the Parliament in 2023 pushing for shorter certificate lifespans and much stricter enforcement. And the final law, it's this really interesting, pragmatic blend of all those ideas, which is the perfect setup for what we're talking about next. Which brings us to Section 3. So what were the big sticking points? What did they argue about for all those months? Let's zoom in on the 3 biggest battlegrounds that really shapes the final version of Article 44. The first fight was over something that sounds kind of minor, but it has huge real-world consequences: language. The first idea was very specific, very bureaucratic about which official EU languages you had to use. But look where they ended up. The final text just says the language needs to be easily understood by the authorities. It's a brilliant move, really. It's a shift away from rigid rules and toward what actually matters: clear communication. The second big battle was about the clock. How long should one of these certificates actually be good for? The initial thought was simple: one size fits all, 5 years for everybody. But the final law is way smarter. It gets that a standalone AI program changes way faster than one that's built deep inside a car or a medical device. So the faster-moving AI gets a shorter 4-year validity. It's a much more intelligent, risk-based approach. And now for what might be the most important fight of all. It was over a single legal concept: proportionality. For a while there, the European Parliament wanted to get rid of it. Now, that would have meant that any mistake, no matter how tiny, could get your certificate yanked immediately. But common sense prevailed, and the final law put proportionality back in. And this is so important because it ensures the punishment fits the crime. It stops a tiny clerical error from getting the same penalty as a major safety failure. Okay, so after all that debate, after all the pushing and pulling, what did we actually end up with? Let's move into Section 4 and deconstruct the final official text of Article 44. So here are the key pillars of the final article. You've got that pragmatic language rule we just talked about. You have the smart, risk-based time limits. Enforcement is guided by that crucial idea of proportionality. There's a way to handle minor updates without starting from scratch, and critically, there's a guaranteed right to appeal. Let's dig into a couple of these a bit more. First off, who actually does all this checking? Who are the AI police? Well, they're called notified bodies. These are highly specialized, independent organizations. Think of them as the expert third-party auditors of the AI world. They're designated by the EU countries to be the official gatekeepers, and their independence is what makes the whole system credible. So what does this path to certification actually feel like for a company? Let me tell you, it is not a simple box-ticking exercise. It starts with submitting mountains of technical documents. Then, the notified body doesn't just look at the AI, it audits the company's entire quality management system. Only if you pass both of those rigorous checks do you get a certificate. And guess what? It's not over. The notified body keeps an eye on you with ongoing surveillance audits to make sure you stay compliant. So, after all that complexity, how many different time limits are there for these certificates in the final law? The answer is simple: 2. And that number 2 represents that whole risk-based compromise we saw earlier. It's a 4-year certificate for those fast-changing, standalone AI systems and a 5-year one for the AI that's more deeply integrated into other products. Simple, but smart. Now, here is a detail that is so important. The final version of the law added a guaranteed right to appeal. This is huge. It means that if a company feels a notified body got it wrong, if they made an unfair call, there's a formal process to challenge that decision. It's a vital safety net that protects innovators and keeps the whole system fair and balanced. And that brings us to our final section. We have been deep in the legal details, but now it's time to zoom out. Why does this single article matter so much in the grand scheme of things? What's its real impact on the future of AI around the world? I think this quote just nails it. The story of Article 44 isn't just about writing rules. It's about a process. It was about finding that tricky balance between all these competing needs: the need for safety, the need for innovation, the need for fairness, and weaving them together to create a system that's both strong and reasonable. And this chart really brings that balancing act to life. You see, Article 44 was never designed to just stop innovation in its tracks. Not at all. It's meant to be a framework that finds a sweet spot. It sets a really high bar for safety and for fairness, but it also creates a clear, predictable road for innovators to follow to bring their amazing products to market. So, if you only take one thing away from our deep dive today, let it be this. This one article provides something that businesses crave more than almost anything else: legal certainty. For companies anywhere in the world, it lays out a clear, predictable, and fair pathway to get their most advanced AI approved for nearly 450 million people. It is quite literally the key to unlocking one of the world's most valuable markets. And that leaves us with one final massive question. The EU has put its cards on the table. It has built this incredibly detailed, balanced system. So the big question for the rest of the world is, will this become the global gold standard? Is this the blueprint that other countries will copy to make sure that AI is genuinely trustworthy? I guess only time will tell.